I think the Yankees underachieved last year. The Yankees, their lineup, just so powerful. I don't think you can count them out. But what I think is going to be even better this year is their pitching. I don't think you can underestimate going out and getting a guy like James Paxton, who's just an excellent player, great pitcher. I think he's going to stabilize that rotation a little bit and give them a guy you can lean on for 200 innings and just be a great contributor. Then they went out and got a lot of pieces, too. Some things that they were missing, like some infield depth. You go out and get a DJ LeMahieu, a Troy Tulowitzki. They're going to have Didi out for a little bit. Didi's probably going to miss maybe half the season, so having those two guys brought in to play some middle infield for him is a big deal. And if their bullpen wasn't good enough, they go out and get a guy like Ottavino, who's just a lights-out guy for them. They're going to be really tough across the board, and I think after an underperforming season last year, they're going to overtake the Red Sox this year.
World champion Red Sox.
Yeah,
give them their respect.
Yeah, you can keep saying that all you want. You're not going to hear me say that. You're not going to hear me say that, but
I can definitely hear that. I think Troy Tulowitzki is going to be a perfect half-year fill. He should get hurt by that time Didi comes back. And then Didi should just fill in the rest of the year. I mean, Troy should have a hot first half. He usually has a hot first half, and then he starts to slow down because of injuries. So that might help with them. I think if Boston doesn't get Kimbrel back, there's going to be another closer they're going to be able to make a move on during the year. I don't think that's too much of an issue right now. I think they're going to win every game by at least 5 runs anyway, so closer's really not going to do too much for them.
They're going to win every game? Like 162-0? Is that the prediction?
No, I think I think they might win around 110 now. They might win around 110. That's a lot. I have them just over what they had this year or last year at 108. But I think they can win a few more. I think they let a few slip away in the beginning of the year. Because they were tied up with the Yankees for a little bit with a run, and then they just pulled away. I think they can get to 110.
Well, let me ask y'all this, because like I said, I just started following baseball, and I'm trying to read up on it. I'm trying to get up to speed. But every year I watch ESPN, and the Yankees have like these high expectations, and it seems like every year they don't meet these expectations. You think it changes this year?
Well, the thing with them is they're a different breed. I think that's kind of what I was talking about when I was talking about the haves and the have-nots earlier, right? You've got a few teams that can go out and just spend to get whatever they want. It's a little bit of a different playing field that they're on sometimes in some of the smaller market teams, and you could see that really well last year. I think that was the mark across the league. You look at some of the teams that finished last in their division, the Miamis, the Cincinnatis, the Kansas Cities of the world. Those guys are going to have trouble going out and signing whoever they want, whereas the Yankees, they're almost expected to go out and get that big guy. So I think the reason you might have that air of disappointment around them every year when they don't go deep is for that very reason. With the ability to go get those guys, you have that expectation of greatness. When you fall a little bit short, that's what it is. But they've been a good team. They've made some playoff runs, and for most franchises, that would be acceptable. But when you're the New York Yankees and you don't win a title for a few years, everyone starts to wonder what the heck's going on.
Yeah, it's championship or bust with them every year.
Right, exactly.
Another question. This is like a side topic. How does the in the MLB, how does the payroll work? Is there like a salary cap? Is there because I just seem like this team just throw crazy money around at these players, but then do they pay like a luxury tax, and how does that? Can you explain that to us? Can you explain that to me?
Well, I mean, there is no real salary cap because all teams spend different money. I mean, the Yankees, they're able to spend like $100 million more than what the A's would spend. I mean, if you check, I think the A's starting roster was around like $30 million, and the Yankees was around like $200 million. There's a big difference there, and teams didn't do too much different last year, but that doesn't happen too often. Obviously, the A's had a real good year last year. It doesn't happen all the time, but with MLB, no salary cap there. They should definitely bring one in soon with these crazy contracts, and you might even see Mike Trout in a few years get close to $750 million. I think he's easily over $500 million in 2 years. There's no one else in the league that compares with him.
Man. What about the other three teams in the division? Tampa Bay, Toronto, and Baltimore. Do you guys seeing maybe anything happening with them? Or are they kind of just like in rebuild mode, middle of the pack?
They're lost. They're lost in that division. They can't keep up with them. There's no way.
Make sure you talk to them like
I'll tell you what, I'll give Tampa Bay a lot of credit for pulling off a 90-win season last year in that division.
Right.
They've got some guys that they brought in, too. I think that a lot of people think that they're going to be competitive, and I'll tell you what, they would probably win the division if they were in the Central. They might even take a run at making the playoffs if they were in the West. But in that division where you got to play so many games against Boston, so many games against New York, it's going to be really tough for them. But they went out and got a guy like Charlie Morton, who I think is a big deal. That's a guy very similar to Paxton, who is a veteran guy that can throw a lot of innings and really help with that rotation. Mm-hmm. And they've got a good lineup. I just don't think that it compares. Bringing in a guy like Avisail Garcia, I think that helps. But I think that their outfield's going to look good. They're just not a good enough team. They're a good team in a great division.
I got you.
And I think that the other two, if we're talking about Toronto and Baltimore, they're going to suffer big time. I think Baltimore might have a historic loss total this year. 110, 115 losses this year is not out of the question. They are in.
They had 115 last year.
Yeah, I think it's a repeat.
I think they just got worse.
I think they got worse too. Yeah, I think they're going to be
way worse.
Awful.
Wow.
I mean, you lose Machado last season towards the end of the year, and then you're going to possibly lose Andrew Jones, Chris Davis. Who knows where that guy's been the last 3 years? Get him back on the Adderall because that's when he was hitting home runs. I mean, I think he was hitting like 40 home runs a year every time he was on the amphetamine salts. So might want to get him back on that.
I think there was a fundamental flaw in Baltimore where they built their roster around guys that they thought could hit 30, 40 home runs, who then hit next to no home runs, whether we're talking Chris Davis, Mark Trumbo, guys like that. That was supposed to be the centerpieces of their lineup for years to come, and they were just huge busts. And again, when you're not the Yankees, you're not Boston, you're not the Dodgers, and you can't go and get somebody new every year, you make a couple bad decisions, and it kind of bankrupts your team for a few years.
So, yeah, a lot of those teams pretty much got to build from like their young prospects in the draft, and they can't really rely on big free agent signings and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much.
It's like, look at like the Phillies. I know it's not in that division, but once they signed Howard to that huge deal, after then they signed Howard and Utley. After then, they weren't able to field the competitive team at all. They were just trying to deal out their money, get rid of that money, and then now they're on to new things and they're able to offer new contracts. They get the Bryce Harpers of the world and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think too, Matt actually brings up an interesting point there about being able to pay these guys. One of the things that's weird in baseball, we kind of glanced over it a little bit, but you asked about how the salaries work in baseball.
Right.
One of the weird things that happens in baseball, unlike other sports, where guys get paid pretty quick in other sports by comparison. You've got guys that they come out, they're 24, 25, 26, already established players in the league that aren't making what they should be making yet. And then what happens is those guys want long-term deals, kind of like the ones that Machado and Harper were looking for. But the problem with that is that you sign these guys to long-term contracts, 10, 11, 13 years in Harper's case, and all of a sudden you've got this guy signed through their mid-30s. You'll see a heavy drop-off in play for guys once they hit 30, 31 years old. The back half of those contracts are a big-time liability, and I think you saw that with the Orioles. You go and sign a couple of guys, Trumbo, Davis, they start to get a little older, they're not going to perform, you've spent all that money, and you're in big trouble at that point.
I got you. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and pick a division winner for the AL East. You guys pretty much already said it. You think the Yankees?
He's got Yankees. I got Red Sox. I think the Red Sox are going to beat out the Yankees this year again.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've said it. I think I don't know if it's bold prediction necessarily. I think it's like 1A and 1B in that division. I mean,
right.
if Boston won, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think they're both making playoffs. Let's put it that way.
For sure. Absolutely. I think. I don't know, Matt. If the Yankees pitching can get them even 4 or 5 innings, and you go to Britton, Ottavino, Betances, and Chapman, I just don't know how you beat that team, particularly when they're a team that can score 7-8 runs a game on you.
Okay.
You just scored 10 with the Red Sox.
Yes, that's that you do. You just score more runs. Bryce, that's the key to baseball, my friend, right there. So you're getting into baseball. To be successful, you want to score more runs than the other team.
Score more
runs.
runs.
You heard it here first, yeah.
Yeah, I heard it here first, man. Y'all want to win at baseball, score more runs than the other team. And as long as you have that at the end of the game, you win.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works, yeah.
All right, do y'all want to stick in the AL and move down, or y'all want to go to the NL
We can
East?
stick to the AL.
Okay.
We'll go through his division here.
Let's go to the
Yeah,
AL
let's
Central.
Central.
Let's
I
do
know
it.
he's going to be talking about the Indians.
All right, so Ed, last year the Cleveland Indians took the division with a 91-71 record, and wasn't really even close. Like the next team was the Twins, 78 and 84. So you guys pretty much just dominated that division. I'm assuming you're thinking more of the same this season.
Well, I think so. Here's what scares me is that there's a lot of talk out in the baseball stratosphere that the Indians are just going to walk away with this division again. I don't think that that's the case necessarily. I feel like that was what the Indians were thinking as well. If you take a look at their offseason moves or lack thereof, we just signed Hanley Ramirez, which is really exciting. If this was 2006, which I'm pretty sure it's not. That was our big free agent signing. But we lost a lot of good players. We lost a lot of good role players. We lost Michael Brantley. We lost Josh Donaldson, who was only with us for a short time, but they're thinking big things from him out in Atlanta. But you lose your Lonnie Chisenhalls, your Jan Gomes. You lose some of these guys, and we are taking some major steps backwards in the batting order. The thing with Cleveland is that their rotation is going to be as good as anybody in all of baseball. Kluber, Carrasco, Bauer, Clevenger, and Bieber. Top to bottom there, I think you've got as good a rotation as anybody. But we're not going to score many runs. So if we're going back to that old joke of score more runs than the other team, I think we're going to struggle to put some runs on the board. With that being said, you've got other teams also that are taking steps forward. I think Matt talked about the White Sox earlier, so I'm going to let him talk about them. But the Twins, I think, are a team to look out for. I think the White Sox, like Matt was saying, are maybe the team of the future in that division. But the Twins, I think, are on the move.
Okay.
One other thing I'll say, too, is that if you look at the win totals from last year, if Cleveland was in any other division, we might have finished second, third in those divisions. I think, going back to what I was saying earlier, you've got the haves and the have-nots there. And if the Indians were in any other division, we would have been in some big trouble. But real quick, talking about the Twins, I love their outfield with Rosario, Buxton, and Kepler out there. Their lineup looks tough. Again, top to bottom, if Miguel Sano can figure out what's up with him, if they can keep him out of single A ball this year, we'll see what happens there. But they went and got Nelson Cruz, and they went and got another guy that I really liked, I wanted to highlight, was Marwin Gonzalez. Marwin Gonzalez is a guy that not a lot of people talk about, but he's one of those type of players that can play just about any position. He's a switch hitter. He's an unselfish guy, and I think he helps that lineup big time. So I think the Twins are on the move. I think it's going to be a much tighter race than people think. If for no other reason, I think Cleveland took some steps backwards, and Minnesota took some steps forward. I think Detroit and Kansas City are going to be terrible. We're talking Baltimore Orioles terrible.
Yeesh.
But I guess I'll let Matt talk about those White Sox a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really too fond on the White Sox this year. I really like Kopech, who's going to be coming up. He's supposedly throwing 104-mile-an-hour fastball before.
I think he's out for the year, though, this year.
Yeah, but that's why in a few years I see them being good. But hopefully that man comes back and can throw that heater again. But like with Yohan Moncada, they got some of the best young prospects in baseball. I mean, I don't know if it's San Diego Padres good with those prospects, but they're up there with top talent. I don't think they're going to do much this year, but Minnesota, I have them winning. If you take their away record last year and do something with that, they're 29-52. That's one of the worst road records in all of baseball. If you can fix that a little bit, they're going to be in playoffs there. So, and they also did add those pieces where they're going to have some more home runs now. Dozier didn't do too much for him last year. At the beginning of the year, they got rid of him, and they started doing better. So, let's see how they do with that lineup. I think Minnesota takes over that division, but I think Cleveland